available to their employees, so the parking that the employees, the negative impact of the employees parking in the neighborhoods would be taken away from those neighborhoods?
The employees have told us that they do use those spaces, but they are not going to be the ones to say that they can't be taken away. I mean, they're in the business of helping low-income seniors, and they see the untapped resources.
But I'm saying not to negatively impact the neighborhood surrounding those developments, that the employee, they be required to provide, convert those to employee spots.
The affordable senior housing developments obviously have a small number of employees, and they do
10
not.
cars is 10 cars.
They have a small number of employees, and obviously the employees don't all drive to work. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have other options. And again, from the point of view of the senior housing operators, many of which are nonprofit organizations that are devoted to providing senior housing, there is a dire need. They have long waiting lists, and their highest priority is to find affordable land on which they can develop additional senior housing. And they see underutilized parking lots as an important resource in order to do that.
So if they take away the parking, you will oversee their development of that into something else other than
they do that themselves. I mean, they're
nobody oversees that. So
They're subject to a regulatory, depending on the funding source, they're subject to a regulatory agreement.
Thank you.
I just also want to point out, we've heard a lot about how Queens is unique, and we know that. And if you look at the transit zone, you look at the areas, first of all, you know, somebody pointed out that Manhattan boards 1 through 8. Manhattan boards 1 through 8 on here are grayed out, as is Long Island City and downtown Brooklyn, because there are no parking requirements for affordable housing, and in Manhattan there are no parking requirements for anybody. I know, but if you look at Queens versus Brooklyn and Northern Manhattan and the Bronx, we have treated Queens differently. We know that car ownership rates are higher in certain areas. We've disregarded certain subway lines, like leading into the Rockaways, where we don't think making parking optional versus required would be appropriate. We think we have been very tailored with this proposal to reflect existing demand for housing and existing car ownership and car utilization rates. That being said, this is the public review process. You know, we take your comments seriously, and we expect this to be carved up even more. You know, we're being aggressive. But we're here to listen and to get your comments. And so I just wanted to put that out.
Brian? Yes, hi, I'm Brian Block, Chair of Board 13. And yes, you can look at the transit hubs on the map, but I think you need to come out and look at the actual areas, because my board, as well as 12 and 14, a lot of people use vans. That the buses don't operate as fast as they should. Am I right, guys?
Yep.
Am I right?
Absolutely.
All right. And the other than the vans, it's the cars. That's how they have to get around. So if you're gonna, I think we're all in agreement with affordable housing and with, well, senior housing, I should say. But you're talking about possibly taking away their cars, or for seniors not to be able to drive to move into a facility. That's going to be a big fight from seniors. I mean, I was just, my mother overheard me talking with someone. And my mother overheard, and I'm still alive, because I said that maybe it may get to the point of her not arriving. And she just overheard me and said, "What are you talking about? You'll never take my keys away." And she just turned 81 this year, so if you want to take on my mother and other seniors in Southeast Queens, you're more than welcome. It's going to be a losing battle, because they cherish their freedom to be able to jump into the car and go about their business. If they're sick, if they have to go to the grocery store. As I said, my area 13, and you come out and take a look, at 12 and 14. A lot of folks use vans. It's not just the bus lines are there, but they don't operate as fast, frequent as they should. And the trains don't operate as frequent as they should, which is why folks utilize the vans. And if they can't have the vans, that's why they use their cars. So I think that's something you need to look at.
Well, just to be clear, we're obviously not physically taking cars away from anybody, and we're not telling you that if you have a parking space today, that parking space will not be there in the future. Okay. If you need a car, you will find housing that has a car. Clearly, the wait lists for the developments that are built without parking indicate that more people care about a housing unit than they do about a car. And they are willing, whether that means they have a car and they're willing to find another space for it, or they're willing to get rid of the car, they're willing to live in a housing unit without being guaranteed a parking space. If they are unwilling to do that, they will find a housing development that has guaranteed parking or has parking at a price that they can afford. You know, the 30,000 people waiting to get into Macedonia Plaza, I understand parking was a very big deal there, but it wasn't for the 30,000 people who were applying without parking.
Well, then he shouldn't have been complaining 2 months later saying that there was no parking problem. He knew it. He didn't walk into that blindfolded. They were warned right from the beginning that without parking, you're going to have a problem over there, and they were relying on Flushing Commerce to build up their parking lot, which is now taking a long, long time. So.
Raj?
Yes, I'm Raj Rampershaw, Committee Board 9. We have Richmond Hill, Kew Gardens, Ozone Park, and part of Woodhaven. The main concern with our board is the parking. Kew Gardens, I invite you right now to try to get a spot. You're not going to find it. 101 Avenue is going to change. It was upzoned a couple of years ago with an R6B overlay, and I already know about 4 developments that are going on, 8 family, 10 family, all fall under the waiver. There are parts of 101 that don't even have parking meters there. And people will leave their car there for a week, 2 weeks, whatever it takes. They don't care. And the problem we have is the parking. And up and down all those streets, and Community Board 10 has the same issue, all the boards, and I agree with everyone here, so I don't want to keep, like I said, beating a dead horse. But the problem with our board, and like everyone else, is the parking. And I think that you will change the landscape of the neighborhood, the community. We have a lot of R4s. I can tell you right now, I live right behind Jamaica Hospital. There's a lot that's vacant, and the guy next door owns the house. If he wanted to knock it down, and there's R4, they will build and change, build a senior house and change the whole character of my block, which is all detached houses. And I know the zoning requirements because I work in an architectural firm. And one other comment real quick. I know you're saying that you're going to give them 5 foot with the height. To me, I don't think these developers are going to make anything like what you're showing on that picture there. I know for one of my board members brought it up at our last board meeting, you showed one of the photos in black and white, the way it looks now, and then the new photo, all beautiful and decorative. I don't think that's reality here. One last comment. On Jamaica Avenue, the Arca Company, which is the senior housing, did you walk through their parking lot? Their lot is always full every time I drive by there. Did you guys, when you did your study or whatnot, did you guys visit that facility or no?
I don't recall if we have, the Queen's Office might have. The Live On, the senior housing advocacy group that did a survey of parking facilities throughout the city, we're not saying that every senior parking lot that exists today is underutilized. We know that it's occupied by staff. In some cases, it's occupied by residents.
Okay. One last comment. When you do this transit zone, just like my other chair said, I would invite that when you do it, let me know. I would love to drive with you through this area. And I have no problem. I'll take off from work because it is a big concern and a big problem. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, any other chair have any questions?
Can we get the study that you're talking about,
The Live On, yeah, it's available on their website. Live On, LIVEON.
It's citywide.
I'm
It's
sorry.
citywide.
I'm sorry.
No, they looked at specific sites around the city.
Yeah, it all
see
goes-
what they look
You can look at the Queen sites. I mean, but just to be clear, we didn't base this proposal on their study. Their study followed our proposal. And
Hi, Pat O'Brien, Ward 2, which is Long Island City, south of Queens Plaza, Woodside, Sunnyside. I think you're getting the message about the parking. I think so I won't belabor that, but you're also bringing up parking as an issue in the context of what I think is both a real and perceived assault on parking between bike lanes and the Vision Zero implemented on Queens Boulevard. We're losing not just 5 or 10 at a clip, but 40 and 50 parking spaces at a clip. And people really need it. And it's not just the seniors, because if it weren't for the seniors, we wouldn't have the junior citizens. So I'm all for the seniors. But it's really about a shrinking pool and a really a seemingly concerted effort to advance one cause at the expense of another. But let's talk about something else, because chances are you've absorbed as much as you conceivably could on parking. You know, we have a couple of issues with the increases in housing, you know, in the R6B and the R7s. To go up to 105 feet in certain locations is a real problem for us. We are experiencing, not just down in Hunters Point and Queens Plaza South, but up along Queens Boulevard, extraordinary growth, and all of the shovels ain't even in the ground yet. So what we're going to wind up with is exponentially beyond what we're looking at now. So to add height is going to be problematic, and I'm talking for our board. Other boards can look at it a little differently, but that's going to be problematic. And the notion of the alternatives on the MIH, the notion of on-site separate, to me, and we have not voted on this. We have a public meeting coming up next week, and we're going to have a full board meeting on November 5th. But on-site separate, in a manner of speaking, is worse than having that private entrance for the affordable units, because now it's a building that says, okay, that's the affordable piece. Now, it may be a good thing to have the building, but on-site separate is problematic too. And as problematic is the payment in lieu, because nobody knows where that money's, and I don't know that you're able to answer the question, but I will point out the concern. Nobody knows where that money's going to go, how much it's going to be, how it's going to be allocated, how it's going to be distributed, how it's going to be spent, and what the oversight for that money will be. So it's something that conceptually may have an appeal, but in practical effect, I think it's going to be a disaster. So those are the concerns that we have in terms of the MIH. The other concerns that we have are that by fostering, there's no question that affordable housing is necessary, and it's a goal to be sought after and strived for in every reasonable way possible. The problem, I think, is the subjective definition of what is reasonable, especially as you relate it to a particular community. We are already, we're in a transit zone. And the definition of the transit zone, as I understand it, is as we've heard, within a half mile of a subway line. Well, as with Ward 1, we're within a half mile of a lot of transit zones. The problem is that in that definition, it does not appear that there has been any focus or any required examination of the ability of the current utilization and overcrowding of those train lines and buses, the ability of those trains, lines, and buses to grow, to add capacity, and the ability to add train lines or buses to supplement them. And those are huge capital expenses, and at least our experience with the 7 line is that you can make some signal changes on the 7 line to bump capacity maybe by 20%. Well, in the last 10 years, in my half-assed view of it, the capacity and ridership has gone up 100%. So if you're increasing the capacity by 20%, you're still lagging 80% behind. And we have the Willets Point project going on further east. We have all kinds of things happening on that line. To speak of a transit zone, proximity, within a transit zone as the criterion, to me, there's no recognition, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, I'd love to be corrected on this, but there's no recognition by using that term of art that there's any attention paid to current utilization, the possibility of future expansion within that line, and how long it would take. Because anybody who lives in those places knows that it's ridiculous. You get on a train, and the only thing lacking are those little fellows in the white helmets from Tokyo that are going to push you into the train car. So that's a concern too when you define, transit zone, and forget about the fact of a half-a-mile walk, right? That's pretty significant for most people. So basically, I think we have not voted on this, but I think a lot of our view is that absolutely reasonable, affordable housing is wonderful, to be desired and sought after. But if these things can't be thought through, and more significantly, and this goes beyond zoning considerations, if there is not a simultaneously concomitant commitment to capital expenditures with a window of time that's not 20 years from now, it's very hard to reconcile the two. Because what we're going to see in CB2 is one of the hottest and most, with all due deference to Board 1, which is also a wonderful place.
Same hotspot.
Yeah.
Rockaway.
Everybody wants to be there. Every developer wants to put a shovel in the ground and go 80 stories if he can. They will push that envelope, and when you move it a half a mile away, or you move it off-site, or you even incentivize it, what's going to happen is that you will have X number of people, the people you intend to benefit from the affordable housing, will move in and say, why in God's name did I move into this wonderful affordable housing? I don't have any of the infrastructure available to send my kid to school, to get to a medical facility, to get on a train line, to get anywhere. I mean, and that's the kind of stuff that should not lag behind. I mean, well, everything lags behind, but it shouldn't lag behind as long as it takes to build a new train line or to make, the capital commitments that should be made simultaneously.
George?
Just a quick comment on the parking situation. You can tell where the passion is. There were 1,000 parking spots on the south side of Queens Boulevard in a public parking garage. They said it was underutilized. Well, they never asked why it was underutilized, so we're not going to go into it, because it was, you went in there, you risked your life. They took away 500 parking spots, and one of the people representing the company that wanted to take away the parking lots wanted to meet me so we could discuss it. I said, okay, drive down there, I'll meet you, I'm going to walk. He said, no, we'll do it over the phone, because he knew he couldn't park anywhere. We knew that, okay, and I knew it when I told him. The promise was, you're going to get 500 parking spots